This week, we welcome Maurice Stebila, Chairman and founder of CXO Insight, to discuss how XDR and threat monitoring can help detect ransomware attacks. In the leadership and communications section, 3 things every CISO wishes you understood. What is the BSO role and is it necessary? Cyber insurance costs up by a third and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. Stopping advanced threats requires knowing exactly what you're up against. XtraHop Reveal X is the only solution that shows you not just where intruders are going, but where they've been. 90-day look back and complete network visibility across the data center, cloud, and device edge helps security teams respond 84% faster with XtraHop Reveal X network detection and response. Explore the interactive demo at securityweekly.com/XtraHop. Cyber risk and compliance automation is finally here. Legacy GRC systems cannot support the powerful, real-time automation and oversight that organizations require to take risks that matter to succeed. CyberSync continuous control automation ingests data from the IT GRC stack to update controls against regulatory requirements and risks in real time, delivering insights and visibility. See how members of the Fortune 500 are saving millions annually by visiting securityweekly.com/cybersync.
Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 223, recorded July 12th, 2021. I am your host, Matt Alderman, here in a sunny Colorado, but my co-host today joining me remotely, I think might be a little wet. We're going to start with Mr. Jason Albuquerque.
It's a little rainy here in New England, but you want to know what? I got my brand new aftermarket parts. I can see everything wonderfully now. It's a whole new world for me.
Oh, good. Adrian, is it sunny? Is it cloudy? Is it rainy down in Tennessee?
Yeah, it's actually, it's that time of year where we have thunderstorms kind of roll through. You know, they're kind of in and out, so we'll have sunny weather and you'll make plans and forget to check the weather because it looks nice and sunny, and then in the midst of those plans, those thunderclouds roll in and ruin the day. So you got to make sure you check.
Got to check. Same in Colorado. Security Weekly is proud to announce that we will be at InfoSec World 2021 in person. Yes, in person, October 25th to 27th, 2021. This year, it is over my birthday, by the way, but our annual partnership with InfoSec World is extra special as we are both business units under the Cyber Risk Alliance brand. What does that mean for Security Weekly listeners and InfoSec World attendees? You will get to see and hear from many of the Security Weekly team at the event, and you will save 20% off your World Pass. Visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2021 to register with our discount code. In our July 14th democast at 11 a.m. Eastern, learn how to reveal and protect your entire attack surface. Then join us July 15th at 11 a.m. Eastern to learn how a thoughtful approach to SASE can improve security and enable scalability. Finally, in our July 22nd technical training at 11 a.m. Eastern, learn how guided SaaS NDR enables rapid response. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to register now. If you've missed any of our previously recorded webcasts or technical trainings, they are available for your viewing pleasure at securityweekly.com/on-demand. A chief information security, compliance, and privacy officer with over 20 years of global technology leadership, Maurice has served as an advisor or CISO to some of the world's biggest companies, including Harman International, Samsung, General Motors, Hewlett-Packard, and Electronic Data Systems. He is the author of multiple award-winning cybersecurity awareness programs and InfoSec newsletters. Now as the founder and leader of CXO Insight, he's using his knowledge and experience to bring together CISOs and other experts to share their insights through his platform. Maurice, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. And here in Michigan, the Great Lakes state, we are experiencing a lot of rain as well right now.
I grew up in Ohio, and at certain times of the year, we would say Ishigan because we could not use the M in our vocabulary.
That's right. Ohio State, right?
Yes, yes, I am a Buckeye, born and raised.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to talk ransomware though, and we're
All
going to
right.
talk XDR, which is an interesting topic for Adrian. We're going to get into this a little bit, but let's start with, look, we've seen the news headlines over the past few months, right? Ransomware is everywhere. Every month, every couple weeks, a new ransomware attack comes out. I want to start this by talking about, why do we see so much ransomware? What are CISOs challenged with that make us susceptible to these ransomware attacks?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a step back a little bit before we actually get to the challenge of the CISO. As I've been thinking about this all week and been looking at some of the news articles, as you mentioned, ransomware, it's something we're seeing each and every day. There's always a brand new attack. I truly believe that the issue we're facing is that as a nation, and maybe even as a government, I don't think we're being as proactive as we should be or we can be in terms of actually taking down some of these malicious organizations and infrastructure. I think for the first time when the Colonial Pipeline situation hit and the ransom was paid, many of us were quite surprised a few weeks later when we had read that it appeared that the US government was able to retrieve, by going into that crypto wallet, and retrieve some of that ransomware money back that Colonial Pipeline paid. And I think that was the first really in the news in terms of something that was actually discussed that we took part in. But I think we need to see more of that type of action. And again, I think we need to be more proactive in dealing with ransomware. If you think about it, I mean, we've got small businesses, medium-sized companies, and even large Fortune 500 enterprises that are against what? They're against an organization that, for the most part, is backed by a nation state, one of the largest and well-funded cyber nation states in the world. And I think it's a David and Goliath right now. And David doesn't have a good stone to take Goliath down.
But even still, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I am not a big fan, though, of the government coming into, say, private industry per se. There might be some things that the government could do or should do, or maybe will in the future. But there's a very gray line there for me. I mean, we've talked about this topic for years. Let's assume we can't take them down for a second. I still, as an organization, have to have a level of responsibility to prepare for risks in my organization and be prepared for these types of attacks. So why aren't we doing that if I can't have somebody else prevent these attacks in the first place?
Right. And so what I would say is that, just to close that one door, I truly feel that before the attacks take place, our government has a responsibility to protect the cyberspace of our national infrastructure. That's our government's responsibility, and I believe that our cyberspace has been infiltrated, and to a point to where it's affecting now all of the businesses within that cyberspace. So if in fact that cyberspace is not going to be as protected as we would like, then each of us as a CISO, as a CIO, as a CEO of an enterprise are going to have to look for additional tools to identify, of course, and to protect against this malicious activity. And these are not just your, standard tools that many of us grew up with when it comes to some of the legacy security tools. We must have tools that are looking for the anomalies, the anomalous activity going across our network. But again, many of these tools that are out there, if in fact, you are up against an organization supported by a nation state. They will use a 0-day attack if they want to get in. And I really feel that, we're still climbing. It's an uphill battle. I believe that we can do more, of course, in terms of assessing our infrastructure. We could do more in terms of self-assessments of our third-party suppliers, the supply chain. We can do more in terms of even looking and doing some of the basics within our own infrastructure when it comes to just vulnerability patching. But again, I do believe this is an uphill battle, and I still feel I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I just think we're 3 steps behind the malicious users right now.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's a shared responsibility between industry and government, right? I mean, I'm kind of with Matt. It's a slippery slope, right? Where do we draw the line where the government's involvement is? We talk about advocating for open free internet, and we're always on the side of that because we want to make sure we have the freedoms available to us. But on the other hand, I sit back and say, where do we draw the line with government? We have a responsibility. We need to be doing this together, ultimately, right? Because it's a slippery slope internationally, because you have nation state actors, right, who are brought in by their governments, and ultimately, our nation has a worldwide political game to play, right? That's the way it goes. So, it's that international policy in the way we react to a cyber attack could create disruption internationally, right? From a business perspective,
Absolutely.
From a trade perspective. So that's where I think we have to be careful, and we have to make sure there's a balance there.
Right. I don't think the U.S. wants a cyber war with anybody. But unfortunately, these other organizations that are backed, we firmly believe are backed by various nation states. They don't have to play by the same rules that in many cases we have to play by. And because of that, it's not a fair fight, right? I mean, they're going to come in and do whatever they want in terms of our infrastructure. And I'm not saying that we're not doing some cloak and dagger as well in the background, but I just know that I believe, we do have a set of rules and policies and guidelines where I think it's much more difficult, for our government to be as proactive as I think some of us may like them to be. But I think also, Matt, going back to what can we do as CISOs in terms of protecting our infrastructure, in addition to those self-assessments, in addition to the basics, right? The vulnerability, patching. I think another issue is really getting the talent on board has been very difficult for many of us. I mean, this is a sector when it comes to cybersecurity that has a negative unemployment rate. And, trying to find security analysts, trying to find senior security architects that are able to assist to mitigate some of these very sophisticated ransomware attacks can be very difficult for many of us right now.
Yeah, Maurice, you're dead on there. It's a scenario where we don't have enough talent today, and we don't have a pipeline, right? So it's twofold. That's the struggle we're having. So how do we stop the bleeding and get cyber professionals involved today, get them groomed today? And how do we make sure that, we as leaders in the industry are working with not only higher ed, but K through 12 to make sure we're building a nice, strong pipeline of cybersecurity professionals? That's the struggle. We need to tackle both sides.
There's also apprenticeships, internships, because what I constantly hear from the folks I'm mentoring is, they just can't get a foot in the door. Like they've got certifications, they, in some cases, they even have degrees, cybersecurity related degrees. And, they're doing, tech support for Apple and stuff like that. They can't find anybody willing to take on a junior position. And I mean, on the one hand, like, you can't complain about the lack of senior people available and not be making junior people more senior.
Agreed.
Yeah, the Air Force Academy here has a really good program to mentor people to get them ready for the cyber industry, but yet they don't have all the relationships with all the industries to create these internships, back to your point, Adrian, to get that foot in the door, to get them started. And so they've got the education, but they don't have the opportunity, which is another challenge in this space.
And they don't have 8,200, just constantly pumping out like these experienced folks, because, military service in Israel is compulsory. Really good way to pump out, a high volume of competent security folks.
Yeah. And, we talked about some of the tools to really identify ransomware or these type of attacks. And Matt, one of the issues, and I don't know if this is a good time to sort of talk about this right now, but I believe that the tools that we're using today, we're using various tools independently. And I think there's a challenge when we have a large number of tools in our toolbox, and they're all being used independently one from another. I think in some cases, having too many tools can bring in additional risk. And so many of us have been looking within the industry for a platform that would, from a unified perspective, allow multiple proprietary security components to be viewed all within a single platform.
Yeah, this is that concept of XDR, right? And I do want to get into this a little bit because I want, extended detection and response is this XDR term's been thrown around for a little while now. Adrian, you and I have been talking about this with labs and some other stuff. And I guess the first question I have is define it. What is XDR? Is it EDR plus? Is it NDR plus? Is it threat intelligence SIM plus? Is it all of the above? What is XDR?
Yeah. I call it the X factor, which I think even makes it more ominous in terms of what is the X factor. And as you mentioned, the X does stand for extended, right? So it's taken that detection and response and it's extending it. And now we're even hearing about some companies who are talking about open XDR, open extended detection and response. I do like, I don't know if it's Forrester or a Gartner, but I do like their definition about a unified security incident detection and response platform. I think the key here is that platform automatically collects, automatically correlates that data from, as I mentioned before, multiple proprietary security components. So it doesn't matter if it's on-prem, public cloud, hybrid environment, a SaaS infrastructure. Those proprietary components could all be brought into what we're calling an XDR platform. And one of the huge benefits for that, at least for me, back when I was at Harman, we had both a network operations center and a security operations center. We had two different groups. And many times when we had a security incident, it would start off, with the security team, but then they'd have to, hand that over the fence to the network team to get some information, to do some isolation, maybe on the firewall. Then the network team would throw it back over the fence to the security team. And what we found is that, the dwell time was longer than it should be because we had two different teams, trying to work together, yet they were still separate. And so by bringing those teams together, I see a lot of companies now bringing the SOC and the NOC together. In many cases, the network team wants to learn cybersecurity. The security team needs additional network expertise. So in many cases, it's a great opportunity for cross-training. In addition, you're able to deal, I think, with a cyber incident much more quickly if you bring the SOC NOC together. And by bringing them together, I think an XDR platform is just the absolute answer to allowing both teams to participate and to use network tools, security tools, all under one umbrella.
Now, I'm going to go to my co-host for two different angles here, because number one, Adrian, as you think about XDR, here's what I think of. I think of endpoint, network, threat, log, which means SIM, kind of all bundled together in this concept. And that's a pretty big market landscape when you think about the individual players all trying to expand into XDR. So want your thoughts on that one. Then I have a follow-up for Jason, because I know where his thought is right now.
Yeah. So to me, it's an evolution, not a revolution. I think if you strip out the category names, the names of these products, and just look at the value prop, in the sales pitch here, really the pitch hasn't changed in the last decade and a half, I'd say. If you look at a pitch from a SIM in 2004, 2005, it looks pretty similar to a lot of the stuff that we're seeing today. We just never got there with those products, because I think we've really bit off more than we could chew. I remember, very soon after getting our first SIM, which happened to be RSA Envision, our first instinct was to shove logs from everything into it. We had over 1,700 devices reporting into the thing, logging like 4.5 million events a day. And we tried getting Endpoint in there as well, and Endpoint just didn't fit. There were too many logs from too many endpoints, and that wasn't even EDR. That was just, like Windows logs from the endpoints. We didn't have the storage for it. And fast forward, and you start to see the SIMs saying, okay, we're finally doing some correlation here. The early products just couldn't do the correlations. It was humans looking at them that did it. So they're finally doing some of that, pulling out some insights in an automated manner, and then said, well, we need some way to automatically act on some of these. We started to see SOAR get built within SIM, and then SOAR became its own thing. And then EDR got built out. As kind of like the endpoint specific SIM, and I feel like we're seeing all that coming together now, saying, okay, we've got all this data. We've got insights coming out of it, but they need to be shared. They need to be all in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, need to be integrated. This is where I'm going to switch over to Jason, because I know, Jason, without going into vendor specifics, you love the integrated concept. In your previous role as a CIO and CISO and bringing all this together, this was nirvana for you.
Absolutely, 100%. And I'm a fan of the ecosystem, right? I love a security fabric across the entire organization. And that's network, endpoint, server, application, identity, SaaS products, whatever the case may be, bringing it all together, right? So that's why I love the play for these organizations. And there's a few of them out there doing it fairly well today, bringing that security fabric. Because, to go back to Maurice's point, we have, 60, 70 point products out there. And, we're lucky if we can adopt 20% of each of them. So how successful are we going to be there, right? We're not going to be successful if we have all of these tools, all of these things to manage, all of this overhead to manage, and they're all separate siloed systems, right? Now you have to have an SME for every single one of those. Why not bring in an ecosystem? Honestly, I would rather have an ecosystem of products that offer me integration and context, and maybe they're not in the upper right on the Magic Quadrant, all of them. But at the end of the day, I'm going to get better performance, better context, better visibility for my team, and a better outcome than having 60 of those that are up in the upper right-hand quadrant. I'm telling you right now, where you see better results because you have that integration, you have that ecosystem, you have less overhead for the team, less noise for the team, better response time, better ability to actually execute on things.
And speaking of the team, it's a great place. I know I've probably mentioned it before on BSW, but the security outcomes report that Scientia Labs did, one of its findings was one of the key things for employee morale, for talent retention in cybersecurity are integrated tools.
Absolutely,
because
100%.
They feel like they can get something done. They're not trying to manage, 5-6 tools a piece. That they actually get to do security work instead of just managing tools all day.
100%. It takes your team from keep the lights on, right, and just turning the engine and keeping the lights on, to actually adding value and growing and transforming the organization, because you're taking all that additional noise off the table of having to manage 60 products that don't talk to each other.
Absolutely. And I think as XDR continues to mature, we are seeing some vendors out there now providing an XDR solution that not only integrates when it comes to identifying, but also integrates when it comes to actually protecting, so that, from within that's your single XDR platform, you can, go to your Cisco firewall and you can, block a port. Within your XDR platform, you can go to your EDR, tool, whether, whatever that may be, and you can isolate an endpoint. There are a few companies out there that I believe are mature in that area, and those capabilities are available today. And I believe having this integration, this XDR platform, is really a huge step when it comes to cybersecurity and our response to ransomware. Whether it, and there's a lot of companies out there now that are throwing XDR, within their presentations, their multimedia, their websites, whether it be Dell SecureWorks or ReliaQuest or Stellar Cyber. I mean, these are all great XDR companies. If you haven't investigated into an XDR platform, I really believe now is the time. If not, I believe you're going to continue to be very vulnerable.
So that's my last question for you, Maurice, right? As Adrian said, it's an evolution, not a revolution. So where should people start? Because my guess is the path varies depending on what things you've mastered and what things you haven't mastered. Can you give some guidance, some recommendations on where should CISOs start their XDR journey? Because you can't go full in XDR. You got to start somewhere.
No, you can't. So first of all, do your homework, do your research. As I mentioned, many people are claiming to be XDR compatible, and I truly feel that there's a small subset out there that are truly providing what I'll call an open XDR solution. So one of the things as you're doing your research and investigating into what type of XDR solution is going to work for you, it's really going to be, can I integrate the tools that I have today into this new platform? There are some platforms out there that I believe will encourage you to sunset your tools. And you may not want to sunset your tools right away. You may want to integrate those tools into the platform and then maybe sunset some of those tools, some of those legacy tools later on. So look for a tool that will integrate with whatever network tools you're using and firewalls and endpoint detection tools you're using. Make sure that there are connections and integrations into your current tool set. I really think that's where to start initially.
I think that's a great piece of advice. The other one I think you would say is talk to your congressperson and maybe try to legislate cyberspace protections or something.
Yeah. And again, I'm not advocating that the government come in into our systems per se. Okay, what I'm really saying is that if there are bad actors out there and they're doing nothing but destroying our cyberspace, if we're able to stop them way out, within their own infrastructure before they attack ours, I'm just in favor of taking some of those sites down. And I do believe we're getting very close to seeing additional legislation that I think will allow us to do more than we're doing today. I think we have to. I mean, we've seen, some of the largest cyber attacks in a decade. And you throw ransomware into that, and things are getting pretty bad. So I think we've got to take some drastic action. And that drastic action, both from a government perspective, but also I think we need to look and, hopefully, XDR, it'd be great if it was the panacea here, but, I think it's a place to start.
Yes. Well, thank you, Maurice, for joining us on Business Security and having this conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me. I had a great time. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.